Hey, today we've got a response from Arrowhead's CEO Shams about the future of Helldivers 2, crossovers, developers, and so on. Not only that, we'll discuss the latest major order, and also bring up news about Sony's new CEO, and I'll be covering much more. Okay, Helldivers, we're going to start off by talking about the future of Helldivers 2. We have a great question that was brought up on the official Helldivers 2 Discord. There's a player who essentially asked the CEO whether or not they have a date when they plan to end support for HD2. In response to that question, Sham spoke and said that as long as people are willing to play, pay, and they can build a business case around it, they'll support it to hell and back. He also mentioned that if the team can keep going for 10 years, then they will. What are your feelings about this? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, my thoughts are that the idea of keeping it around for 10 years would be quite a challenge. I'm not opposing it at all. I would actually like to see it last that long. But what I'm saying is that the difficulty would stem from trying to create fresh ideas, adding new content that will bring Helldivers back. They'd also have to work around the Stingray engine if there's any sort of issues. Plus, there's going to be all sorts of games that will be dropping within that time that I think it would make it hard to keep it going. I'm not saying it's entirely impossible, because it's not. I believe they can do it. It just depends on creating more and more content that will keep players coming back without it feeling dry. Just about any live service game is going to struggle after spending years coming up with ideas. A great example to look at is Destiny 2, which has faced its own set of challenges in maintaining players' interest over the last 7 years. Despite having a dedicated fanbase and a wealth of content, Destiny 2 has struggled with content creation. The developers have often been criticized by players for recycling old ideas or introducing content that just feels too repetitive. Bungie has also navigated through issues like player burnout, evolving metas, and constantly trying to outdo previous content releases just to keep the players engaged. This right here is a great example that shows while it's not impossible, it certainly will require them to put on their thinking cap to keep a game like Helldivers 2 thriving for decades. Speaking of Destiny, Shams replied to a member about what he would like to see when it comes to crossovers. We've got a Helldiver here that asked what crossovers he would personally like to see. The response that player got back was that Shams would like to see an Alien collab, Warhammer 40k, and ODST, which, by the way, I don't think we'll see that collab considering it's an Xbox IP, yet you never know. He also included that Destiny is a bit too sci-fi, as well as StarCraft 2 and Star Wars. Now, to be fair, the last part, I'm not too sure if he's talking about StarCraft and Star Wars also being too sci-fi. I wouldn't imagine so, but it kind of appears. Anyways, I believe this doesn't mean it's off the list, since they have to collectively agree on what crossovers they would like to pursue in the future. Personally, I would love to see a Warhammer crossover or Aliens, and I wouldn't mind it one bit if they added an ODST armor to Helldivers 2. But again, I don't think we're ever going to see that unless Xbox and PlayStation talk it out and agree on something. So if you could add one crossover that was brought up in this conversation, which would it be? And if it's not on the list, then tell me what you would like to see featured. On that note, let's now talk about features. The next question is about a first-person mode feature for mounted guns and emplacements. This Helldiver here wanted to know if that's going to be possible in the near future. Shams wrote back with this here, pretty much saying that they've got so much stuff in the pipeline, and they're not only working on the next release, but also on future plans beyond that, and that the team is always discussing different options back and forth. Lastly, in this post, he said that it's really hard to keep track of small details like that. If you want a first-person mode feature for mounted guns or emplacements, then you might have to hold on and wait to see if it's going to be featured. Side note though, he was asked about mechs with melees, and all he could say is that they've discussed a lot. But yeah, that's just about everything in general. So yeah, who knows what they've talked about. Continuing forward, we all know that Helldivers 2 was created on the Stingray engine, which eventually became outdated during development. The question I think a lot of us have been wondering is, what engine will they use next? Well, we might have an idea. Now, if you take a look right here, we've got a Helldiver here that replied to Shams. He basically said to ask Guerrilla Games for their engine. Surprisingly enough, the CEO wrote back and said that they've talked to them about it. With that said, can you imagine how intense the next few games would be if they were to use the same exact engine? funny enough, if we're talking about Guerrilla, there's an engine that comes to mind, and that's the GeoMod 2.0 engine that was used to develop Red Faction Guerrilla. If you have never played that game, I highly suggest it. It was so fun at the time, breaking down walls of the buildings and all the destructible objects. Nonetheless, the reason I'd like to see an engine like that is for the destructible objects and buildings that they could implement with it. Although, if I had to guess, they would probably have to update the engine. We're now going to put aside that conversation and lean into a conversation about the Chief Creative Officer. Someone had asked if it's true that Pilstead is going to quit working on Helldivers 2. Shams replied to that Helldiver, saying that he'll give a bit of an insight into how game development works. He brought up that the lead for Helldivers 2 is Michael, who has been a part of the team for the last few years, and Pilstead's role as a senior creative is to support all of their projects. So yes, he'll be involved with HD2 the same way he has been since development. In this post, he also mentioned how Pilstead collaborates with designers on certain stuff, and funny enough stated that Johan is not a Jesus figure with some sort of superpowers, and that sure, he got Helldivers to the spot it's at, however the team helped HD2 cross the finish line, which obviously makes sense, right? The Chief Creative Officer didn't create the whole game all on his own. They work together to create games, and I'm sure they have a blast doing it. I think it's to be expected that he's treated so highly, considering a lot of players in the past have similarly done the same thing with other developers for other games. Like way back, I remember everyone would practically bring up Gears of War's lead designer Cliff Bleszinski. I'm sure there's another example I could give, yet you get the point. Sometimes players will idolize certain people within a dev team, and that's just how it goes. So far, we've talked about features, developers, crossovers, and just a lot. The next question is the last one, and I believe it's worth bringing up. It's actually a very good question. Fundamentally, a player asked how they plan to manage live service games moving forward. In response, Shams wrote that one of the biggest things he focused on was bringing in more co-development partners to help the team build the game. He also included that as a gaming studio, they don't want to grow too much. Thus far, they probably don't have to. They've done an excellent job at hiring the right co-developers. We know recently from a previous video of mine that on the LinkedIn page, I showed Disco Garage Games wrote in the post that they had helped with the Fast Recon vehicle and the Volus. We're now going to switch topics and discuss the recent news about Sony appointing a new president and CEOs. This was revealed yesterday on Sony Interactive's website, and I'm bringing this up because Sony and Valve have recently removed 44 countries from the Helldivers 2 blocked region list on Steam. Now, I'm sure at this point you're probably wondering, are they ever going to get rid of PSN Link? Well, that might just be a possibility because they're actually going to make it an optional choice. Right here it says, an account for PlayStation Network will become optional for these titles on PC. Players who still opt in to sign into a PlayStation Network account will also enjoy added benefits like trophies and friend management. Yep, so it's going to be optional, but the only problem here is that it's only for Marvel Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. There's also Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered as well, but you don't see Helldivers 2 on there. Obviously, they've recently removed the few countries, and I'm sure they're going to start removing more. But yeah, all in all, this is some really good news, guys. What I'd like to know is, what do you think about this? Do you think Sony is going to remove the PSN Link feature or not? And also, what do you think about the future of Sony and PlayStation? Does it look good? Let me know. Lastly, for today's video, we've just completed the latest major order, which I'm sure you guys are already aware of. If we check out the bottom section here, this is what it says. Electromagnetic waves have proven effective at penetrating dense gloom and may enable orbit-to-ground communication and long-range radar astronomy. Much work remains, but thanks to the Helldivers, the first expedition into the gloom, and subsequent acquisition of its potentially vast E710 reserves may soon be within reach. Yep, so this is great news. We're going to be able to dive straight into the gloom, stop the situation, whatever's causing it, right? And on top of that, could the Hive Lord be underneath it? Possibly. There's definitely a possibility of that, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think we all are looking forward to the Hive Lord boss, as well as an automaton boss in the future. But if we're talking about the Gloom, most likely we'll see the Hive Lord, you know, and I can't wait for this. Alright, as always, we have the top 3 comments. If you guys would like to be featured on the channel, all you have to do is comment down below. The first comment is by Izumata. I think that's how you pronounce your name. You said, something tells me it's not HD3. Nope, it's probably not at all. And actually, the only reason why I brought it up in the video is just to have a conversation about it. And you guys did a great job on it. The second top comment is by Hugh Jass. Only Discord and Reddit needs could read, "Hey guys, I'm taking some time off after 11 years of constant work to focus on my friends and family. As game's over and I'm out here deal with it. I swear these people have no concept of life beyond a computer screen. It's no wonder he wants a break from us." Now, I don't think it's a break from us. I think it's more so just a break from everything, right? Just constantly working and trying to improve Helldivers 2, right? So maybe it's not just us. Maybe it is, but it's everything collectively. The third and final comment is by Dr. Recincio 2019. Pelstad has returned to civilian life. Indeed he has, and then eventually he'll be back maybe next month, maybe in 3 months. Hell, he might be back in 5 months, since that's kind of what he talked about. Anyways, guys, I appreciate the love and support from all of you. If you guys want to, feel free to subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a big fat like. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.